Hello, welcome. This is Amy, Mystic Rose Tarot. I am here to share with you our third Decan reading for the month of Aries for the week of April 10th to April 20th. And with this reading, we have with the Unified Esoteric Tarot, which I will show you in a moment, we're showing the planetary influence of Jupiter in Aries and the minor arcana card of influence for this Decan period being the Four of Wands. So with this reading, I'm going to do for the last Decan of this month, I'm going to show you various cards from different decks that have visual interpretations of the Four of Wands and its energy and how it can be used in various situations that you are in. So I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm going to reflect on our first Decan, our second Decan, and see the pattern. We're going to see the energy from the Two of Wands, the Three of Wands, and the Four of Wands to where we are right now, the Four of Wands, the progression and the energy from the time that we first started to where we are right now. Now, the Decans represent certain degrees of influence for each astrological month of the placement of the planets. So 0 to 10 represents the first week of that astrological month. Okay, so our first Decan was from March 21st to March 30th, which is that first week of Aries. And then the second week, which I feel the second Decan, I should say, I feel the second Decan in all the astrological signs and the Decan readings I'll be doing, I feel is the epitome of what really personifies that astrological sign. So our second Decan is March 31st to April 9th, and that's 10 to 20 degrees. So that's right in the middle, right where Aries is, I feel, is the strongest. And then the third Decan, where we are for this week, for the 10th, April 10th to 20th, represents the tail end of that energy of Aries. But we're going to be seeing that progression and how to use each of these Decans during these time frames as inspiration, as for guidance, as for maybe putting in some more insight into what you're doing. Now, the astrological planets, like Jupiter and Aries, for where we are going to be for this week, Mars in Aries, which was the first Decan, and the Sun in Aries, these are fixed. These are associated specifically with these cards. There are other decks like Tarot of the Holy Light, which have their own planetary and sign placement of influence for each of these minor arcana cards, and also the Golden Dawn. They have their own planetary placement with the signs and the cards that are associated with them. So they're different systems. Tarot of the Holy Light and the Unified Esoteric Tarot, which is the decks that I've been working with when I do these readings, the creators created their own system. So they're going to be different, and they're not like the set way to follow these readings. You take it with a grain of salt, and you can infuse the energy that you feel is best associated for you and your needs and whatever guidance you need. So with that being said, let's go right into our Four of Wands. I'm just going to adjust this here a little bit. There we go. All righty. Okay. So I mentioned my core card, or the core deck that I work with when I do these astrological Decan readings, is the Unified Esoteric Tarot. And here we have, as I mentioned, Jupiter in Aries, Four of Wands, and the key word of guidance and inspiration for this last week in Aries. And I think this is a really self-empowering way to end this last Decan week for Aries is the sign of courage. The characteristic of courage, being fearless in what you're doing. Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter is a planet of expansion. It is a fire energetic planet. So Jupiter and Aries work good together. Jupiter actually pushes that energy even more so when it's placed in the sign of Aries. So with this card here, this is a time of where we can grab opportunities during this week. And I have notes here off to the side, so I have to glance at them because I have quite a bit of information to share. So it's an opportunist card. That's the best way I could describe this last decan. When you are working towards an intention, and we're starting to see that growth, which we see here with the Four of Wands, or the cards I'm going to show you in a moment, we're feeling that roll. We're feeling like things are moving good. Everything is not right on target, but everything has been set in place. And they are willing, Jupiter and Aries, that influence. They're risk takers because they know whatever risk that they take, they've carefully assessed the progression of what they've been working towards. They've been seeing the results thus far. And so by taking a risk, they feel that they could still benefit that for some reason, not for some reason, but Jupiter and Aries can really turn a risk and make it into something beneficial for them and make it work in their favor. Aries are natural motivators. And so with lucky, prosperous, abundance-filled energy of Jupiter just really pushes their endeavors towards success. It's like when during this influence of Jupiter and Aries, during this week, go all the way. Remain focused. Keep that focus on that intent that you've been doing. Look at everything that has happened so far, and keep that perspective going when you're working with Jupiter and Aries. Okay, so that's our planetary sign influence for this week, from April 10th to the 20th for the third decan for this month of Aries. So I mentioned the Four of Wands. I have 4 different cards from different decks showing, again, visually, different interpretations of Four of Wands and their energy. So basically, before I show those cards, the Four of Wands is overall. When I showed, let me back up here. This, I was talking more about the planetary influence and how Jupiter can harness Aries into to inspire to keep going. Have no fear. Take those chances. Those chances will be a good investment because you've seen the progression. You've made those wise choices. You know where to go from there. So that's with the Unified Esoteric Tarot. But the Four of Wands in general, it's a time to just take a temporary pause, look at everything that has been happening. We're seeing the growth. And just really assess the next steps that you want to take. You've made those choices. You've made sound choices. Actions have worked out in your favor. You've had the right work ethics and values that you've been putting towards this particular project, goal, relationship, and you're starting to see the results. And what the Four of Wands is having you be aware that what you're doing, you're still on the right track, and to continue onward. But just to take this moment, just to acknowledge all the hard work and the skills that you've you've invested in, and you're putting some stability at this time, okay, towards what you're looking at and what you're working towards. So what we're seeing here is I'm going to give you the different interpretations of these cards. Some of them are similar, but visually they are different. Okay, so this is with the Lumina Tarot. This is a wonderful example of where we see, it's almost like, this is one of my favorite words to describe some cards where there's action, but there's no action taking place. The energy is there, but it's at a pause. Things are moving internally towards what you're working on. There's no physical movement to start shifting things. Things are internally moving. So we have here the crystals pointing north, south, east, west to represent the placement of the energy. So all the energies are in their position. We have the feathers here, which sends that energy out forward. And this card's very light. And we're seeing the concentric circles. They're merging into each other. And they're starting to take their own shape. So here we're starting to see things form. They're not there fully, but we're starting to see things happen. And there is the stillness, but you're ready to take the next steps. The feeling's really optimistic in this card, and it's holding great potential of what lies ahead. Remember, if you make those choices that you've done and actions that you've done so far to get to this point, this is what the Four of Wands is just reminding you. This card is from the Essential Tarot, by Pablo Mont. And this is a pip card, very similar to the Four of Wands. But here, what I want to show with this card, energy-wise, with the Four of Wands, is we're starting to see, let me show here. So here we have everything in place. As I mentioned, everything's ready to go. But with this card, I feel that we're starting to get a little bit more of an awareness. So we know what we've done so far, but at a universal higher level, we're starting to see this energy go beyond the realms. And here we're seeing everything still. We're seeing the growth that some of the pip cards in the suit of wands start showing. So we're seeing this awareness. And then we have the color green, green relating to calm, to grounding. But throughout the Four of Wands, this is just temporary. We don't want to get stuck in this and start having some other influences come in that could deter this. This is a time of remaining focused. So this is what we have here with the Four of Wands in the Essential Tarot. There is this awareness, higher universal awareness, and everything similar to the Lumina Tarot, everything feels right. Everything is balanced. 4 is that number of showing everything is in structure, everything's in place. You look at a square, we have the 4 corners. They're supporting, those lines are supporting each other. And this is what we're seeing here. They're not in the shape of a square, but we're seeing that these wands here, this energy can move into that direction to start creating the structure that's needed. The next 2 cards I'm going to be showing, next one is from the Dreams of Gaia. This deck works more with elements. So instead of wands, it's fire. And it still infuses the same perspective, but visually it's quite different. Here we're seeing, this is with the Dreams of Gaia, You look at this card, we see this individual. I described this when I was writing this reading out for my blog. This is someone who has their eye on the prize. I'm going to move this close. I'm going to hide my face. Just look at the energy and look at the placement of the eagle on top of his head, like a headdress. The placement of the eagle's eye is almost in line with the individual who has the arrow. It's directed right at you. This is a very strong card. And so here we're seeing that direct intent towards the goal. We see the focus on that intention, on that goal. Nothing's going to stop this person as long as they remain focused and their actions are in the right place. We see the spirit guide of the eagle with direct mindfulness and wisdom during this experience. Here we're seeing that you're ready to go. You have that confidence. You are set to continue and follow through with this commitment. You've already gone so far through the first three cards, Ace, 2, 3, and 4. If you keep that trajectory and steer clear from any outside influences, you will reach that success. So now comes the Tarot of the Holy Light. Now here, I mentioned we have different planetary influences in the sign. So here, I'm going to move really close. The influence for this card is Jupiter in Leo. Okay, I don't want to talk too much about this because it is a different astrological association with this card. I just want to focus right now with the Four of Wands and the guidance for this third decan using Jupiter in Aries, okay, instead of Jupiter in Leo. So here I mentioned about with the Four of Wands, overall, we're looking for structure. And this card is showing it. The structure isn't in a square, but we're seeing the crossing of two sets of wands. And the energy here is very interesting because it almost feels like it's protecting. I feel this is like the intention, this is the goal, and it's protecting what it's been working on so far. Here we have the sun. The sun is that source of inspiration and vitality, but it's placed lower in this card. So I'm feeling the focus on this because this card is Jupiter and Leo. Focus is on this. It's on the goal. It's on the intention. And Jupiter, just a quick side note, I don't want to sidetrack. Jupiter and Leo. Jupiter, again, is of movement, directness, fiery energy, luck. But with Jupiter and Leo, Leo's ruled by the luminary of the sun. And so Leos are always seen as they have magnetic personalities. They have a strong sense of leadership. People can trust Leos because they have that pride and they want to do what's best. But what's interesting here is we've got to watch that their Jupiter doesn't influence that Leo side too much, where it becomes more of an ego issue. And then it ends up becoming less of this and more of the person who is leading. And that's not what we're trying to emphasize here with the Four of Wands. Another interesting aspect in the Tarot of the Holy Light, this also, you don't see it in the card, but it is also representative of working with other people, people who, it's the collective support of those who have been inspired by all the work that you've done, your endurance, all the effort, all the energy that you put in is leaving a legacy for those to build upon your achievements. So in other words, what has been created so far If you physically can't do it, you are influencing those people that are working with you or stand by you, and they understand your direction and they believe in what you have to create, and they are there to support you. So if you can't finish it, they can complete the task for you and take it into whatever direction is needed. So this is a card that is very powerful. We start seeing the foundations of the endeavor being made and the people that are supporting you. The one thing I wanted to point out with this card too is the detriment. The detriment is more or less like the reverse influence. The planetary detriment for this card is held in Aquarius. So it's basically Aquarius challenging. Aquarius is an air sign, and Leo is the fire. Aquarius is thinking more about people, making those changes to better the future. So Aquarius doesn't want to be placed in a situation where they could be working with someone who has that Jupiter in Leo, and their direction is starting to lessen, while that ego, while that leadership and telling people what to do is starting to show signs. And what happens in a situation like that is you're forgetting the direction that you're heading. If it's Jupiter and Leo, and if you bring that ego inside, it's going to move away from the intention and focus more on the person who's leading, and that's not going to work for Aquarius, for the opposing sign, the detriment. So they will go against any individual that's showing selflessness, ego, actions, attachments that could go against the good of what everyone was working towards. So we're still trying to create that balance throughout. And with the Tarot of the Holy Light, we're just seeing different situations. We don't see it in the card, but meaning-wise, we could see the possibilities of where this can actually work against the direction of the Four of Wands based on that influence of Jupiter and Leo. So we don't want to get too much, caught up in the leadership. It's like, yes, let's do this, and you're moving, but it's not going in the direction of where it needs to. And that's where Aquarius comes in and says, no, this isn't how it's done. This isn't how it works. That rebellious side of Aquarius will come in and they won't listen. And that's going to be a clash of egos between Aquarius and Leo. And the opposing sign for Leo is Aquarius. So that's a potential issue that could come up if this card was to show up reversed. But overall, with our Four of Wands, okay, it's working in that direction, bringing in people, or having people support you. They can work with you. If you're hiring a group of people to work on a project and they really believe in it, and everyone's on the same page, that works. But there are going to be one or two situations where someone's going to see something different. That's where the challenge comes in. But you have to keep focused. You take those risks. Know what you're doing. Feel within yourself with those actions that you made and those choices that you made, that this is the right path. And the people who no longer see that will leave, and other people will come in. And that has to be made very clear. So with the Four of Wands, we can use this as guidance, knowing that all the efforts that have been made, they haven't been made in vain. You created a path that can lead to continued success. Okay, remember, eye on the prize. Focus. Will, strong will. That's another aspect of Aries. Stability. Stability, but being prepared. You are ready for the next steps to take. Just maintain those ethics and the values and what you've done so far, and you will achieve success. And again, this is not again, but Aries is ruled by the first house, which is of the self. This is how, depending on what sign is placed in that first house, but overall, if it's Aries, that first house, it's all about that Aries. It's all about their goals, how they look, how they want to present themselves. It is very important for Aries when it's placed in that first house. It's all about the self, how we see things, the perspective that we take. Of course, other signs will come in, and it'll be representative of that sign and how they see themselves. And we're going to be going to Taurus after this Decan, so I will talk about those influences and the houses and the minor arcana card of influence, and we'll see the changes. So this is now leading me into doing a recap of our previous decans. So here we had courage, Four of Wands energy. So we're seeing that success, partial accomplishments, I guess we can also say, of what's been done so far. Jupiter and Aries energy. Okay, so we got the courage. The week prior, March 31st to April 9th, we were in the second decan. And this was influenced by the sun in Aries. The sun is all about vitality, movement, great excitement, happy, thrilled about the way things are going, got passion. Three of Wands. Okay, so the Three of Wands is showing us, this is a different interpretation here with this card, we're seeing the energy that's already been put out. Okay, so again, we're going backwards. We're seeing this excitement. We're watching what's happening. We're seeing it happen. We're starting to see it build up. We're starting to see people having an interest in what's being done. And that's builds confidence, because it shows that what you're working on and all that effort, people are seeing it. But it's also a card of patience, or Three of Wands is a minor arcana card of patience. This is from the Nature Spirit Tarot. Now, all these Decan readings, the recap that I'm doing, they're in my playlist, so you can always go back and take a look at them. But here we're just seeing, and this card's just wonderful because there's no distractions. We're just putting the energy out of what's been done so far. There's nothing in the way. The wands are actually these elements here in this card, which is amethyst. We see the apples here, which is of good health, abundance, a healthy outlook towards things. So we're seeing that passion moving forward, but being patient. You don't want to go in and start changing things. Move forward with what's been done so far. I'm going to skip the Three of Wands. Well, I was going to skip this for the Chair of the Holy Light. But the one thing that I found interesting here with this card, okay, we have our Three of Wands, but they're off to the side. And we have our serpent here that's encircled, almost like an Ouroboros. And if I remember correctly, this card deals with time, the mind, and space, and how we're using those three energies, those three concepts, when it comes to progressing forward. The mind, obviously, the thoughts that we've put thus far into what we've been working on. The space, what's our environment like? Is our environment conducive to what we're working on? Are we in a good environment? Are we in a healthy environment? And then the time. How much work, how much effort has been put in thus far into this? And you encompass all of that. And then we start getting that movement. So right now, these Three of Wands, they're off to the side so we could see this action starting to take place. Okay. So here, we're not seeing the physical action because it's already been sent out. But here, we're seeing the process of how it's happening. And we see our environment here. It actually looks like the area that I live in up in the mountains. We got the sun, we got the moon, we got the balance of these different energies of vitality, but also the emotions of joy, working with those aspects to get to where we have to go. So that's with the Three of Wands. Okay, and that was our previous Decan. So this would be 10 to 20 degrees, representing March 31st to April 9th. And then we go to our very first Decan, which was March 21st. I think this year was March 20th that we started into the sign of Aries. I could be off by a day. I think I am. But perfect card for the first Decan. And throughout the board, astrologically, the first Decan always represents the ruling planet of that sign, which is Mars. And like for Taurus, the ruling planet is Venus. So each first Decan, 0 to 10, the first Decan is ruled by its governing, the sign is ruled by its governing planets. We have Mars and Aries, and it's initiation. Got the Two of Wands. So we're seeing the beginnings. Mars and Aries. Aries is the first sign of the astrological year. So it's spring. Everything is starting. Energy is there. It's slowly building up. When we're at this first Decan, we're coming out of hibernation from winter. So we want to make this transition, not fast, not quick, because there could be some issues that happen along the way. You got to ease yourself into a seasonal change, like from spring to summer, summer to fall, fall into winter, so on and so forth. And also similar in energy for the signs. You want to kind of ease yourself into these signs. So we're in the fire month of Aries, and then we're going to go into Taurus. So we can look at how these energies can actually cause conflict if you put too much of one energy and less of the other. We want to create the balance. This is basically astrology in a spiritual sense. Everything needs to come in balance. And if you look at your chart, there are people who have more fire aspects with their fire signs. They may have less water, but maybe more earth, or a little bit of air and too much of this. We're not all in balance astrologically. But if you look at your chart, you could see where these elements, where you are probably held a little bit more with the influence of maybe fire. And I work, as I mentioned earlier, I work a lot with energy when it comes to the signs, when it comes to the planets, when it comes to the cards, the suits, wands, pentacles, swords, and cups. They all infuse information about who we are. So with this Two of Wands, okay, we have Mars and Aries. So we are starting to see the ideas. We're starting to see the actions. We're starting to see the concept coming, starting to build up. Here with the Tarot of the Holy Light, we're seeing more of a balance of opposites during this time. So we want to take, as I said earlier, we want to take this time very slow. Okay. It's a fire sign, and after coming out of winter, there's all that excitement, but we have to direct this. We have to direct this in such a way that it is focused. It's not all over the place. You don't want too much fire, and you don't want too much fire because then it's going to overwhelm the situation. And we don't want less fire while maybe air or water comes in and can just sort of dissipate that fire. We want to create this balance. And here we have the sun that is infusing this energy. Here, this is supposed to be of wrath. This is supposed to be of love and positive energy. How are we going to balance those energies during this time while we're working towards a goal? We don't want any distractions. We have to work and focus on that. Here with the Lumina Tarot. So here's our foundation, very similar. I'm going to show you this card. This is where we are right now with the Four of Wands. So this is basically the groundwork. This is the foundation. This is the layout. This is the blueprint of how we want to get things done. Now we are assessing it. We're seeing what are those steps that need to be taken. So this is the early part of the journey. And again, this is the initiative. You're looking at all your sources that you have. Again, with this card, oops. You're looking at everything that you have. What's the pace that you're going to take this in? We're going to take this very slowly. And we're starting to see the signs that you're going to start making those movements. Okay. So here we have, again, our groundwork. Everything is laid out. Now it's to make it happen. We start making those steps. We start looking at different options. Which option is going to be best for you? Which isn't going to be conducive for moving forward? Then here, because the Tarot of the Holy Light takes a very esoteric approach, this more is the internal aspect of what's going on. What's really happening inside? Are we excited about how things are moving? Are we second guessing ourselves? Are we feeling maybe frustrated because we just don't have clarity on what we're doing? This needs to be resolved so that you can move forward. You got to take those initiatives. You got to take care of all those things before we move forward. If there's any distractions of any sort, whether it's inside, it's going to affect how we're going to do things outside. It's an imbalance, and that's what we're trying to work out. So that was our first Decan, March 21st to the 30th for the month of Aries, 0 to 10 degrees. And then we have Passion with Sun in Aries to represent our second Decan. That's March 31st to April 9th. And then to where we are right now. So we have initiative, passion, movement, and then we have courage. We're taking all that energy that we did in the previous Decan, and we're being self-empowered, and we're making it happen. We're trusting ourselves, and nothing can hold us back with this Decan. And you feel it naturally, especially for Aries. They're natural self-starters. So once things feel like they're moving, they're just going to keep going. I have some Aries in me, and I relate to this. But boy, when any distraction comes in, depending on at what level the distraction is, it can really sidetrack you. So you have to really, literally put those blinders on and just stay focused. It may come across selfish to people, but you're looking after your own best interest and those that are working with you. You don't want your whole team to be influenced by things that are happening outside that's affecting you, because you're leading this. You're being the inspiration to people that are watching what you're doing. So I guess in a way it's watch your P's and Q's, but stay dedicated, stay committed. And that's a very wonderful quality of this sign. And it's also shared with Taurus as well. Taurus, they can stay very committed to something that they feel really strongly about, and determined to get it done no matter whatever means it is. So similar qualities. Taurus is the next sign to Aries. So I think there is some commonality and characteristics between those two signs. So there you have it. This is our third Decan for April 10th to the 20th, our last Decan reading for the month of Aries. And then after the 20th, I will return to do another Decan reading, introducing now the element of Earth. So all this energy that's been moving, the courage, the initiative, the passion, we're going to see what's going to be held for us during the month of Taurus, of Earth, of grounding, of work, perseverance, taking care of ourselves, any investments that we're making. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see what's going to happen. So I will catch everyone April 21st, 22nd. I'm 2 days late with this because I've had to switch computers. I'm now working with a new computer, and I'm able to do better videos. I need to get my second setup taken care of so I could do some other shots as well. So it's moving along, but I'm happy I have a new system, and that it can work smoothly. Hopefully, I can make it happen. That Aries energy. Have a wonderful week. Any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am very happy to hear people's responses and feedback, and I'm there to help you as well with any questions that you have. Everything's in the description. I have Instagram, my website. I do readings. I do live readings every Wednesday, once a week, and then I'm going to be doing a Mystic Moon Monday for this Monday. We are tomorrow, April 12th. I'm shooting this out on Sunday, April 11th. So I'm going to do Mystic Moon Mondays tomorrow. I do it twice a month. I talk about moon energy and influences of the moon signs and their phases, and how those all affect us on a daily, weekly basis. I feel it's very important to speak about this. So I'm going to continue sharing those Mystic Moon Monday insights twice a month with you. So that's it. I look forward to seeing you again, whether on Mystic Moon Mondays or my readings or any of my other upcoming episodes. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and take care.